February 21st, 1965, New York City. Inside the Audubon Ballroom, hundreds of people were waiting. They knew the man walking toward the stage was controversial, dangerous, to some a hero, to others a preacher of hate. His name was Malcolm X. He had lost almost everything in the past year: his organization, his protection, his powerful platform. Yet he walked calmly towards the microphone. Seconds later, chaos erupted. Gunshots, screams, panic. And one of the most uncompromising voices in America was silenced. But Malcolm's story did not begin with bullets. It began with fire. Malcolm Little was born in 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska, an America deeply divided by race. His father, Earl Little, was a Baptist preacher and an outspoken supporter of black empowerment inspired by Marcus Garvey's movement. That made him a target. White supremacist groups threatened the family constantly. Their home was burned down. They were forced to move again and again. Fear was part of Malcolm's childhood. When Malcolm was just 6 years old, his father's body was found near streetcar tracks. The official report called it an accident. His family believed it was murder. The insurance company refused to pay. The family fell into poverty. His mother, Louise Little, tried to hold everything together. She was strong, educated, proud. But the pressure was relentless. Welfare officials interfered constantly. Racism closed every door. Eventually, she suffered a mental breakdown and was institutionalized. Malcolm was 13 years old when his family was torn apart. From that moment on, he stopped believing in the American system. In school, Malcolm was brilliant. Top of his class, articulate, focused. One day, a teacher asked about his future. "I want to be a lawyer," Malcolm said. The teacher smiled, not kindly. "That's not realistic for a colored boy. You should think about carpentry." In that moment, something broke. It wasn't just a dream. It was trust. Malcolm slowly disengaged from school. Then he left entirely. He moved to Boston, later Harlem. 1940s, Harlem was electric. Jazz clubs, bright lights, underground economies. Malcolm reinvented himself. Sharp suits, zoot style, straightened red hair. On the streets, he became known as Detroit Red. He entered the world of gambling, drugs, and burglary. Fast money, fast life, constant adrenaline. But beneath it all, emptiness. In 1946, he was arrested for burglary, sentenced to 10 years in prison. For the first time, he couldn't run. Prison was cold, isolating, humiliating. At first, Malcolm was angry at everyone. Then letters started arriving from his siblings. They told him about a religious movement that preached black dignity and self-reliance. It was called the Nation of Islam. Skeptical at first, Malcolm began to read, and read, and read. He copied the entire dictionary by hand to improve his vocabulary. Books became his new weapons: history, philosophy, religion, politics. His mind was transforming. When he entered prison, he was Malcolm Little, a street hustler. When he left, he was Malcolm X. He rejected Little, calling it a slave name imposed by white masters. The X symbolized the unknown African name that had been stolen from his ancestors. Throughout the 1950s, Malcolm X became the most dynamic spokesperson for the Nation of Islam. He was disciplined, charismatic, unapologetic. His speeches were sharp and fearless. While much of the civil rights movement called for integration and non-violence, Malcolm argued for self-defense and black autonomy. At the same time, another leader was rising: Martin Luther King Jr. King spoke of love and peaceful resistance. Malcolm spoke of justice by any means necessary. The media framed them as opposites: hope versus anger, But Malcolm's message resonated deeply, especially in northern cities where racism was less visible, but just as systemic. The FBI began closely monitoring him. Phone taps, surveillance, infiltration. Because Malcolm wasn't just criticizing individual acts of racism, he was challenging the moral foundation of America itself. In 1963, after President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, Malcolm made a controversial remark. The chickens coming home to roost. The backlash was immediate. The Nation of Islam suspended him. Soon after, Malcolm learned of moral scandals involving Elijah Muhammad, the leader he had deeply respected. He felt betrayed. In 1964, Malcolm left the Nation of Islam. Suddenly, he had no protection. Former allies turned into enemies. Threats escalated, his home was firebombed, but something else was happening. He was evolving. In 1964, Malcolm traveled to Mecca to perform the Hajj pilgrimage. There, he witnessed something that shook his worldview. He saw Muslims of all races, black, white, Asian, Arab, praying together as equals. He shared meals with blue-eyed blonde men who treated him as a brother. It challenged his belief that all white people were inherently evil. When he returned to America, his message had changed. He still condemned racism fiercely, but now he framed the struggle as a global human rights issue, not just a racial one. This transformation made him even more unpredictable, and perhaps even more dangerous to those who feared change. February 21st, 1965. Malcolm knew threats were real. His house had been bombed just days earlier. Still, he chose to speak publicly. At the Audubon Ballroom, as he began addressing the crowd, a disturbance broke out. Then gunfire. 15 bullets struck him. His wife, Betty Shabazz, rushed to his side. He was 39 years old. Members of the Nation of Islam were convicted. But decades later, serious doubts emerged about the investigation. In 2021, 2 of the convictions were overturned. Questions remain. Who was truly responsible? Malcolm X died young, but his ideas did not. His autobiography became one of the most influential books in American history. His words inspired generations, from activists to artists to scholars. Interestingly, in the final years of his life, Martin Luther King Jr. began shifting towards stronger critiques of economic injustice and systemic oppression. Perhaps they were not as far apart as history suggested. Malcolm was not static, he evolved, from anger to knowledge to global awareness. And that evolution is what made him powerful. America feared Malcolm X, not just because of what he said, but because he was changing. And a man who can change is a man who cannot be controlled.